Welcome back, Guardians. My name is Samlab, and yeah, I'm not 100% sure how this video is going to go. No, this isn't in direct response to the copious amount of negative videos we've had, or maybe that's a little bit unfair. They're well articulated, I have to say, from all my fellow content creators. Not to say that none of them are articulate people, I'm just referencing the point that, as I'm thinking out loud here, which is potentially what a vast majority of this video will be between you and me, is that a lot has happened in Destiny and we need to talk about it. And I promised myself that this time round I would be vocal when it comes to expressing how I feel about Destiny as somebody who covers the lore first and foremost, almost exclusively, though I think I was clever, and many of you saw this in the last year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, whatever you want to call it, of actually quitting YouTube. And I did quit YouTube, although I call it a soft quit. It was one of those seasons where I learned what I needed to do in order to further career progression. But anyway, I digress. Destiny. I have a whole bunch of bullet points here in front of me. This is entirely unscripted, but I will do my best to cover each subcategory in my bullet point list to bring some wholeness, some sense of positivity, but also fair critique. So the first thing at the top of my list is how I feel about current lore. And I'm going to kick this off by talking about the Edge of Fate campaign. I love the campaign. It's fantastic. The story is singing, the characters are alive, and for the first time in a long time, excluding the final shape, we have an absolute banger of a campaign. And I'm going to stick to my thoughts here. Now, there's a subcategory break off from this bullet point list. There are obviously things that you and I will disagree on. Many people will say that they don't enjoy Matterspark. I would say Matterspark isn't all that entirely important unless it's to do with the Edge of Fate campaign. So for me personally, it felt tolerable and it didn't feel too far-fetched in the grand scheme of things. Now, having said that, I did see many of you commented on older videos that I did and spoke about your irritation with Matterspark, and I did also tweet a few times in the past about my irritation with Matterspark from a visual perspective. I think that the lights are very bright. Destiny has a thing in its game development core where there are a lot of bright white light transitions, and I'm not really sure why there's so many of those. It could be that canonically and even for lore it makes sense, even objectively, for the creative process of telling a story. Could you imagine telling a story that is in transition and you fade to black? Fading to black is a conclusion. Fading to white is the continuation. And so I think from a storytelling developmental point of view, as somebody who has game dev experience, my assumption, because Bungie's game development process is very different from everybody else's, is that fading to white is part of that. However, it is an issue for people who have visual impairment or have some form of light sensitivity. I myself am colorblind, so I can't see certain colors. This makes colors like white or like really intense brightness really troubling for me. Like, for many years I have both my 24-inch monitors with the brightness turned down, and then eventually I had to tweak them up, and I think that that's like probably an age thing with getting closer to hitting the big 3.8 in literally, if I look at the calendar right now as I'm speaking to you, oh, next week. Yeah, next week, Thursday, we turn 38. Oh, okay. That's, there's a segue for you. So, but overall, Edge of Fate, I love the lore. I love that the 9 finally come front and center of the whole Light versus Darkness saga. And although it has ended, it hasn't really ended. Like, the Light versus Dark saga for me is like literally the scratch on a coin. It's not even the tip of the iceberg. It's like that little bit of an iceberg that crumbled off and is slowly melting, okay? Because if you've read the lore of Destiny, you will know that it's very expansive and contains a whole lot of detail that really is somewhat near impossible to squeeze into the game that is Destiny. But I will say that Bungie have made a strong effort to do that in Edge of Fate, and also find a way to give us a perspective of somebody who has never been a part of everything that was Sunset. So Edge of Fate kicked butt, and in the words of My Name is Bive, whose video I watched earlier, it rocks, and it rocks hard. And so we will leave that exactly where it is, and I will move swiftly on to my next item on the docket. Season of Reclamation, to me, has barely felt like we've reclaimed anything. Now, many of you will know that there is huge lead up to this, okay? I will refer to a lore entry called Blast Furnace, and that lore entry goes into detail about Ada 1 talking to the reps from Omolon and Weist. For those of you who are new Guardians, Omolon and Weist are the two out of multiple companies that produce a lot of the weapons that Guardians use throughout Destiny, in all their various shapes and sizes and fire rates. And Ada 1 hints at the idea of restarting a specific protocol that is attached to the Cosmodrome. Now, when I first read this lore entry, my mind went wild. I was super excited for this. I think initially I had done a lore video about this separately, and then I included it again in my Frontiers video, which till this day I still feel like is undervalued, because I spent months cooking. I integrated multiple lore videos into one. It was a huge thing, connecting all the narrative threads for Frontiers and the potential future. Season of Reclamation kind of is supposed to, and I'm going to assume here or speculate, pick up right on the heels of that, the idea of that conversation of reclaiming portions of humanity. And this is, we even get audio dialogue between Orin, that is the previous emissary of the 9, talking to Ikora Rey, and them having a conversation, and Ikora specifically saying to Orin that it would be wonderful to have your help with Old Chicago, which is one of the first, I think, major times in this expansion that Old Chicago is verbally mentioned in context with the story and Season of Reclamation. But we actually didn't reclaim anything. Most of the audio dialogue we received was in the form of strikes. No, in fact, in the form of lost sectors. That's where we get audio between Anna Bray and Saint 14, who are talking about things changing, but there is zero evidence of that happening in game. There are no visual cues, as many have mentioned, to show us that humanity is reclaiming anything. I love the narrative team. I absolutely love them. The amount of mysteries that have been brought this season are phenomenal. And honestly, I'm sitting on a good like 8 lore videos that are cooking at equal speeds. And some of them I'm really excited to get out, and that will never change because I love Destiny and I love Destiny's lore. But I have to agree with others, and more specifically Bive, because I watched his video earlier today, where he talks about certain cues being missed. I want to also say that it felt personal when the layoffs took place last year. From a narrative perspective, it really hit home. So this is a little bit of a love letter to those developers who are now on to greater things, or honestly, who are still in the trenches trying to find work. It is hard. It is hard to get work out there in anything, and my heart goes out to them. And the team that remains, some of the members from that previous team are still involved, but it's a very different ship. It reminds me of the if anybody's ever watched WandaVision, and towards the end of the series, Vision is talking to another version of himself, a real version of himself, because the Vision we see throughout that series is somewhat of a figment of imagination, almost like four-dimensional brought into three-dimensional space and held together with a hodgepodge spell. Vision is saying to Vision, and they're talking about the ship, and Vision basically says to Vision that if all the planks in the ship are replaced, is it the same ship or is it different? I feel like that's kind of where, to me personally, the narrative team is. It's the same team, but a lot of the planks in the ship have been replaced. And I think Hannah Flipsky and Nico and Alison Lurs are doing an incredible job of writing the story, and I cannot wait to get in another conversation with those three. I hope I can get all three of them together and almost make this like a regular thing that happens on the channel. Like, we sit down as lore nerds talking to more lore nerds writing the story of Bungie, and just getting to like talk about, hey, what was the latest that happened in Destiny, and how do we feel about that? You know, yeah, I wrote it, but like, how was I feeling about it at the time? And then we as players, like, we're saying, hey, like, we have ingested the full depth of this, and we're freaking out. We have questions. Here are the questions, and then we talk about it, and then chat jumps in. You know what I mean? Something like that. I'm gunning for that right now. So look, keep your notification bells queued, because something's coming soon, I promise. But what a hard thing to do, to step in and continue work. Like, do you start again, or do you pick up from where we left off? And I think Alison Lurs as director has done an incredible job of balancing both, it speaks to her talent and the level of fidelity that she brings to the team, and also like the strengths of the whole team, current and previous, who was still involved with Bungie narrative team, whatever size of the team it is. And I'm going to assume that like narrative, although it's been reduced, is still a big team, because without narrative we don't have anything, because the gameplay of Destiny is shaped around a lot of the story. Everything has a narrative context, even if it's a flag or it's a fallen banner. It's not just put there for the sake of being put there, it's put there for signposting. And a lot of the previous 10-year saga was signposted in some of the weirdest places you could imagine. So it is no stretch of imagination to assume that the narrative team at Bungie have been and are doing something similarly right now, and I'm really excited for them, for Renegades, and the potential of what they have coming. So I want to then talk about mysteries brewing. There are a lot of mysteries brewing, and I have there's too much. There's too much to cover. So you know me, I'm a specialist when it comes to Destiny lore. I go for where I see the narrative threads. And sometimes that means asking the bigger questions, even if there isn't like an actual quotable lore entry, or maybe there's just a paragraph. But somehow the narrative team always do a good job of leaving like a flavor text on a new weapon or an armor piece. So a lot of the lore entries that I have, a lot of the lore videos I have coming are on those lines. But then additionally too, I have some videos that are actually answering the bigger questions, and I won't mention them yet because I really want you guys to be excited about them. But many of you know that I have a few videos talking about the Nine and their pantheon, so I have another video about the pantheon of the Nine and where that could be heading and what my thoughts are, because if any of you have watched the lore panel that my name is Bife and myself and Nico and Hannah Flipsky and a few others did Moonvold were part of, then you'll know that it's pretty close. Also Abaddon, I don't want to forget Abaddon. His lore videos are great. So if you haven't checked any of these people out, please go ahead and check them out. But there's bigger mysteries brewing. We already know what's happening with Maya Sundaresh and the Vex. The Vex have become sentient. Bife mentioned this in his video. The curious questions I have about some of those bigger theories is whether or not the majority of the Vex collective has now entered sentiency because of the influence of the Echo of Command, or were they already? So this is going to be a fascinating question to ask whenever the next big expansion rolls around, and we really get to dive in deep on what really is going on with Maya Sundaresh. And I think figuring out how to conclude or continue that story is going to be interesting. And I suspect a good way to do it would be similarly to how it was handled with Fikrol and the Elixni, you know, and Aramis receiving the Echo of Command, although Fikrol did actually like end up being unmade, is the better term for it. It wasn't just death, because he was already deceased. It was an unmaking, so he couldn't resurrect again. But obviously, even in that case, in his stead, we now have Skolas back. So is he going to be leading the Scorn? And he has powers now. And Skolas didn't have any power before. So it's going to be interesting to see how that whole thing unfolds. So he's a baddie, quietly, growing in the deep. We also have Ziva Arath, who is back. We had that whole massive cutscene with her in episode 3, Heresy. So we will see, because only time will tell in terms of what we can expect or how the story will unfold with Maya Sundaresh. I hope that it's well justified. I think she is one of the loose threads from the Light-verse Dark Saga, but she's also transitioned into the new saga, which is the Fate Saga. And her story tells a very interesting story, for the lack of better English. I'm not Englishing well at this moment. We have the entire premise of the fact that she's after members of the Nine, and that's where it's dangerous. And we already have the fact that 3 is gone. 3 has been unmade. She's been destroyed, and there is an extinction level threat taking place as a result of that. And we are just, in the lore anyway, starting to see the beginnings of this tear in the tapestry of existence within the Destiny universe, which is a massive playground to play in. So many of you will have watched my recent video, which I've been calling the Destiny Infinity Stones video, where I'm talking about the Echo and all the different Echoes, and we've lost 2. There are 8 more, and yeah, it was really interesting to see what happens from this point on, because obviously there are echoes unaccounted for. So I would suspect that that means potentially new races. I don't want to see the narrative team do something like give Ziva Arath an echo. I think that that would be really... I think that that would be terrible. I think that whatever power Ziva Arath gains should be on her own, and it needs to be something more ancient, more sinister, something worse than we could ever imagine. Like maybe she's gone to the vault worlds, you know, of the Cabal to lift something from the treasury that she's like, yes, this is definitely going to destroy existence, because she still believes in the sword logic. Ziva Arath, in many ways, is the embodiment of what the sword logic is all about. And then obviously the Savathun. So there are a lot of massive outliers, a lot of big players still on the table, and in my previous video I mentioned that as well. So we'll see what happens there. And yeah, I'm hoping and I'm praying that things go well with Bungie and they'll be able to pull it together. Finally, my last point is Rasputin. I can't let go. I'll be honest. I'm struggling to let go. I'm disappointed that there's no return of Siva. There's no return of Rasputin. But I do have a video coming that's going to be all about the AIs in Destiny and what I think is quietly cooking that nobody seems to know about. But yeah, I have a lot of disappointment with how I think that's been handled. Now, saying that, anything could be happening behind the scenes. I have no idea what Rasputin may return. Somehow, there are aspects and elements of Rasputin's code still existing within Destiny, so it wouldn't be too far of a stretch of imagination to say that Anna could literally recreate an AI. It just wouldn't be Rasputin. That technology exists within the Lost City. Anna has that kind of capability. So I think maybe we're grieving the loss of Rasputin still, and I think that that's okay. But narratively speaking, like, several years have passed since he's gone. So, and I think that Destiny isn't Destiny without a protector like Rasputin involved in the process. We need that system, right? And we have AI in Destiny who could fulfill that. There is Estrella, who is the Vesper's host AI. There is Failsafe. There is also, I'm not counting him because he's evil, Clovis Bray. But he's still an AI. And then there's also Soteria, right? And Soteria entered the Vex network at one point. So, and there's even that connection between Soteria and the Vex, because Soteria is a Vex-based mind, so it's going to be huge, okay, to see if she comes about. Now, Soteria was part of the resistance on Neomuna that kept the Neomuni safe from the Vex invading. So, yeah, there's huge potential for all sorts of stuff to happen there, and I'm really excited to dive into that topic, but it's frustrating when these things are happening. So I'm going to move on to state of the game, because this video is potentially getting kind of long. The Portal. You all know how I feel about the Portal, or maybe you don't, because I've recorded 2 of these videos and I released neither because perhaps they weren't as articulate and I just needed time to process and actually write down what my thoughts are. Again, this is a very unscripted video, but for the most part, it's a conversation that I have on a regular basis with many people. And I don't like the Portal. I never have, and I think it could potentially be a mistake. It in a way sunsets 90% of the game without actually removing it. And I think my biggest concern is that Bungie would consider removing all the other tabs for the sake of the Portal. And if the Portal is a new new play game experience, great. But if it's the only experience, I'm worried. I don't want to sit here and say all sorts of conjecture and conspiracy theories about, oh, when a company like Sony comes in, they'll sit down with the heads and they'll say, look, you guys need to shave off 60% of the game and function on that because there is no more investment coming. That kind of stuff does happen, but I do not want to sit here and wildly speculate about it, and I would encourage you all not to do that because it is a road to negativity town, and that is not a road that you want to go down alone. Yes, be upset. Yes, be angry. I'm right there with you, but let's do our best to support the good people in Bungie who still are doing the good work. And the assumption right now is that there are many people in there doing good work. So let's keep encouraging them and supporting what they do, because I do believe that there's room for those people. But I've heard all sorts of things, and you've heard many people say all sorts of things about what's happening, and yeah, it's disheartening, you know? That's the reality. And so, yeah, I think the portal's a bad idea, and I think we'll leave it on that note. Moving on, you guys have heard so much about the bugs. What can we say when a game is badly QA'd or lack thereof? It shows you up in the negative way, in the worst way possible, for reviewers, for articles, for all sorts of things. And it's already super easy in the kind of world that we live in to have an absolute banger get released and people still find something to complain about it, because they just be about complaining. They're always going to be. They have made the mental choice to always be negative, and that's the life that they lead. But they don't view it that way because they are looking through a tiny magnifying glass, and that is the view and the perspective they have when it's like, yes, vent frustration, yes, critique, but the two, yes, they can coincide peacefully, but I think respectfully too. You know, none of us are game developers. I have game development experience, a lot of hardcore hours of at least a year and a half of learning game dev and volunteering with game dev and game dev courses to know that, yeah, it's not a walk in the park, much less when you then say, hey, we're going to build our own engine. Well, okay, that's a heavy engineer based process, which means Bungie probably did have a whole lot of engineers employed. And without those people and programmers, and then obviously the core development team, people who handle gameplay, if there's like 3 people on the team who really know their stuff around that stuff, yeah, I feel like I'm smelling the embers of crunch. And I really, really hope that the Bungie team is not crunching for Renegades, because that's where we were pre-Lightfall, and we were told that crunch would not happen again. And a lot of people left because of that crunch even before the layoffs. Then the layoffs happened twice. So if we're back to a position where crunch is happening, that's tough to swallow. And I don't know how good I feel about playing a game knowing that somebody is like virtually on the brink of extremity in order to develop a game for me. Life is not that hard, and I understand that it is their job to produce something of quality, but not that they have to literally ruin their mental and physical health in order to make it happen. It's different if you're, as creatives, of course, you're passionate, you want to do it. I do this, even just to bring you guys lore videos, and it's like, oh, here's a 35 minute lore video, and it's like, oh, beautifully presented with really rich audio and like a lot of clips, but it's like somebody had to sit there and cook that thing for weeks before you got it. the whole supply and demand thing, it's tough, you know, because you could give the best work ever and it not be valued well. And somebody still say, oh, this expansion was the worst ever. And imagine, I don't know, 50% of people said that. It's gonna have a negative impact. And you, as a creative, you know, people will say stuff like, oh, you need to have tough skin. No, you just need to communicate better and expand your English vocabulary. But anyway, I'm getting into the weeds here, and I don't want to throw shade or come across negative, because that's not at all who I am. But I do think it's important for us to address things from a conversational standpoint and observe when we can see patterns or things going wrong, or what seems like, hey, you guys maybe need to take a look at this because this seems a little bit concerning. And I think that that's an important relationship to have as content creators and as people covering the game and presenting things to you, the viewer. You deserve good stuff, right? So those are my thoughts there on the whole bugs thing. Team size, I kind of touched on it before. That also troubles me. I don't know what size the teams are. Maybe I don't need to know what size the teams are. I mean, Bungie is fully able and is a grown adult and allowed to tell us what and what they don't want to tell us. But if you're going to build relationship with people, there needs to be 2 seats at the table. And often in the past, when it came to communication, there wasn't 2 seats on the table. Now, I think Bungie's doing a great job. From a content creator standpoint, there is a lot of communication. Generally, there is a good cadence of updates. We get spoken to. If we have questions, we ask and we get a reply ASAP. I love it. And I really commend like the Creator Hub team, who are absolutely killing it, and not just providing a service, but actually being a human being, talking to another human being is so refreshing. And it's so nice to get like inflections of people saying, hey, yeah, this day sucked, or hey, I hope your day's going well, or hey, that thing that you made, I really like, that was really exciting. I loved watching that thing. And we're talking like thousands, by the way, y'all, of creators that these few people are in communication with 24/7. It can get like not degraded, but it can get monotonous, having to potentially say the same things to different individuals multiple times. And I'm not saying that that's what they're doing, because it definitely doesn't seem like it from my end, but just some clarity of context there, and I think that it's important. So I hope that the team is able to pull things together. It's no stretch of imagination, and I know that many of you sitting there going, Sam, you're skipping over some big things. Look, I know there's no doubt in my mind that what was one Bungie team has been split in two. What do I mean by that? One half went to Destiny, and the other half went to Marathon. And it won't surprise me if Marathon is a banger, because in my personal opinion, I think a lot of the talent that was part of some sandbox weapons and I think gameplay were shifted onto Marathon. Respectfully, in order for Marathon to have a good opportunity, but was that potentially at the detriment of Destiny? If somebody was going to say, here, flip a coin, I think I'd be worried about what that meant. And I don't know. I don't have all the answers. We're just talking about this between you and me. I don't know if a Bungie developer will watch this. They probably will. And so this is not a video of me like getting on Bungie's back and just like pummeling them. Not at all. Like I am a passionate creative who is obsessed with telling stories full of hope, and Destiny is and will always be one of those core stories. Am I tired? Yeah, I am tired of making content, not from a place of ungratefulness, because I'm extremely grateful, but from a place of like, can there not always be a drama with Destiny? Can we not be a wholesome community like so many other game communities out there? And it's regularly people who don't know Destiny or play Destiny will say negative things about it. I've been in other streams where I don't really tell people that I'm a Destiny content creator because I'm worried that what they will say about Destiny will be negative. And a lot of other content creators who are Twitch streamers are always pleasantly surprised when they find out. They're like, oh, you play Destiny. Oh, how is it? So that's usually the first question that people ask is, how is it? And not from like I don't know, maybe they're genuine, but from my perspective, it always seems like there's something more that's going here. And usually there's one person in the chat who will say, oh yeah, this happened in Destiny, even before I have the opportunity to say anything positive about it. And so, yeah, that definitely gets frustrating. So, yeah, I want to talk about building a new game from the ground up and game dev. And I'll put this out here, and this is probably a hot take because I don't know. I have a lot of hope for Destiny. I have a lot of hope for Bungie. I have a lot of questions that I would love to sit down with a dev at Bungie and ask. I don't know if I'll get the opportunity to do that, but I hope that I do. And I would genuinely, as like a blueberry, like to sit down with them and ask them maybe 5 questions, 5 important questions, and have a conversation around the topic of development in Destiny and maybe some of the business choices. So maybe development lead and like marketing lead in a call, in a conversation, and we just shoot the breeze playing Destiny and talk about what was your intention with this and why. What are the stats showing you, so that we can just understand? Because I think that if we can understand each other, then it makes for a better space for us all to game in. I think that that's really important. And I think if I was a full game dev, then I would do the same. I would love to sit down with my players and be like, hey, let's just talk. Because we don't get the opportunity to do this. We only ever get a lot of things from, hey, big man Bungie and us small man game content creators or players. And we're all human, we're all the same. So my thoughts, maybe it's speculation, maybe it's suspicion, is that the current state of Destiny is broken and the portal is the doorway to a new Destiny experience. And so it is, the portal is brand new in the sense of, could we be in a place where we potentially have the Destiny we knew quietly sunset or drift off into the sunset as this push for a sustainable, manageable, easier to develop Destiny 2 is presented to us? I don't know. That is a question I am asking. It is rhetorical, so don't jump in the comments and be like, hey. That's not what we're doing here. And Destiny's all about questions, so this is just another big question to add to the pool. So, yeah, that's my state of the game section. And I'll end here on my final thoughts. The future of Destiny. I think the future of Destiny could be bright. I, like many, have not really been playing Destiny. When things got bad, I was that upset. I jumped into a call with my friend Arky and Fam, and we had a good 2-hour conversation about the state of things and just reminding each other about why we do what we do, and also reminding each other that, hey, it's okay if we're not playing Destiny right now. Sometimes too much of a good thing is a bad thing, and I think Bungie deserves a period of time where, yeah, they can just go dark for a little bit and cook. You know, it's a lot of pressure to be 100% on for 11 years with a lot of public mistakes and a lot of things happen, and at the end of the day, the devs paid for it. Not the big people at the top, the devs, the real ordinary people like you and me who grew up playing Super Mario Bros. On the SNES Nintendo, or Sonic Mega Collection on the Sega Saturn, or Sonic Adventure on DreamWorks, or Pokemon Blue, Red and Yellow on the Game Boy Color, you know, or even older games like Pac-Man or Tron, or just so many different things. And they are the most important thing, because without the developers, you have no game. You can't have a marketing team pitch anything if there's no good story and there's no good gameplay mechanics. You have zero, zilch. There's nothing to share. So I think it's just important for us to understand this, and I think respectively cut the team some slack because their team's downsized, but also gently point out when things don't appear like they should be or what we've been used to. But then equally to Bungie, if the comms are changing on what you're providing, I think it's good to make that clear. And I know that DMG has mentioned about this roadmap, and I remember talking to Archean Fam about this, and I was like, he was talking about how we are at Curse of Osiris again, and I recorded this whole conversation, by the way, but I chose not to release it because I felt like that was a conversation between him and I, and we talked about like streaming it and stuff like that, and he was like, yeah, sure, you can stream it if you want, but like I'm not. And I remember hearing his voice, and I remember reading his message and being like, no, you know what, I'm not gonna do anything. We're just gonna talk. And so that's what we did. And we're both Christians, so we were able to encourage each other and just hold on to our hope in Jesus and reconcile each other to the fact that, like, we do this because we want to tell stories and we want to give people hope, and we want to give people a safe space. When everything outside feels like chaos, there is peace and there is hope here, and a place to feel welcomed. And I think everybody deserves that and should be blessed with that. And so that's why we do what we do. So we were reminding each other about that. So we were saying, hey, look, we are sticking with Destiny, and there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times. We've been through this before, y'all. I would say we've had times that were equally as bad. The only difference is we had more developers when those times were bad. 100%. We had more. We had a bigger team. Season of the Worthy was one of the worst periods of time where content drought was like, if y'all are complaining about the power grind, some of you, I wish you were there during Season of the Worthy. We had nothing. We had everything that was Sunset plus, and people were still complaining that the game was unplayable. But by the way, at that time, Destiny lore was popping. Destiny lore was the biggest it had ever been, because people were finally like, you know what, let me get into this story. And that was it. That's when it exploded. And that's when people like myself showed up on the scene, because I wasn't making Destiny lore before Curse of Osiris. I started making Destiny lore after Warmind expansion, because I, like I said in my video, I had experienced a breakup, and Destiny is part of what helped me to get through that. And ironically, even then I didn't have like a core team of people that I play with, which I still don't, and I find that absolutely hilarious. But you know, maybe I missed 10 years or something I should have been more deeply invested with, who knows. But yeah, all this to say, yeah, I'm tired, but I'm hopeful. And I hope that you're able to take a small piece of that hope with you after listening to this video and listening to me rant for a very long time. articulately or not articulately. But yeah, we're in this together. Whatever happens next, you know that there's more on this channel than just Destiny lore, and I'm not saying that because it's a caveat to the demise of Destiny. I don't want to see Destiny go down. I want to see it rise to the greatest height it can. But I think it's okay to take a break for a moment so that what you love doesn't become what you hate. So all that to say, no, I'm not taking a break from making Destiny lore. You got this week's video. I'm working on the next video. Right now I'm working on a Soul Frame video. It's like a 15-minute lore video talking about the story. And so that will be coming out, I think, this weekend. I think if I can finish it. I'm right at the end of it. Thankfully, there's no, like, lore readings, per se. This is just me telling the story with some gameplay. So it should be fun to watch. I need to record some footage of some locations in Midrath. So, yeah, look out for that. It'll be good. And at some point, we'll do some more lore for Arc Raiders. I am extremely excited for that game, and I can't wait for it to be released in October. I will be pre-ordering the collector's edition. Sorry, I don't know why I just made that noise. I'm getting out of character here. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, subscribe, click the bell to find out when my next lore video goes live. If you enjoy this video or any other video that I've done, likes are helpful because it tells me that you all enjoy the videos. I need to see the numbers to know that it's worth investing the time. Remember that no matter what you're facing at this moment in time, you can do all things. Stay safe and Godspeed.